Hello, welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have an interesting stranger on every single week. And today we have
Melanie Manuel from Celesta restaurant.
So if you could kind of summarize who you are or what you do in like a quick little thing so people can kind of get an idea of, you know, what you do, what would that be?
Well, I would say I am a restaurant owner and chef, and we create otherworldly vegan eats.
Yeah. And how did it land on, because I'm assuming you're a vegan, right?
That's right.
Yeah. It would be weird if like you weren't, I guess.
Like I eat steak in my secretly in my bedroom.
But I only want to have a vegan restaurant.
Yeah.
Were you always like that, or was it like a change as you got older? Or
Yeah, I've been vegetarian for 28 years.
Okay.
And then completely plant-based off and on for 8 to 10 years, depending on sort of my living circumstances, because I lived overseas for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
you
sort
lived
of
in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's been an adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your favorite place to live? First of all, where have you all been? Could you even list all of that, or is it?
So I am a military brat, and my dad was in the Air Force. So I was born outside of St. Louis, and then we were stationed in California, and then in DC, and then England and Germany, and then back to DC. And then I moved to Florida on my own for college.
Okay.
And they moved to Illinois. And then I moved to, I studied in Japan briefly, and then I moved to China and Germany, and then back to Florida. And now I'm in Milwaukee.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's, so when you were like moving around, how old were you when all that was happening?
Yeah. I mean, all through elementary and middle school. So I think there was sort of this really interesting nostalgia for what we called the States. When I lived overseas, all the kids would talk about the States, and we'd have our grandparents send us boxes of Jolly Ranchers, and we'd sell them for $1 at school.
Really?
Yeah.
That's an entrepreneurial background right there. Yeah.
It didn't work so well for me because I had a headgear, so I couldn't even eat the Jolly Ranchers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was horrible.
For how long?
You don't want to know.
Because I had it for 4 years.
Oh, that's worse than me.
Not straight, but like I had the whole contraptions in my mouth. I had a whole thing in my jaw that pushed my whole jaw forward because I had like a severe underbite.
Underbite.
Yeah, my jaw was back too far.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it was rough. Yeah, it was like right in those years that you don't want. It was like 6th grade to 9th grade, right as you're like going through puberty and stuff, you know?
So bad.
Yeah, it sucked.
I think it teaches you though to be like, I don't know, hopefully a kinder person when you've experienced being made fun of for wearing a headgear for 4 years straight.
Yeah, and that's not the, I mean, I was like I was 4'10" in my freshman year of high school.
Oh, really?
4'10" and 98 pounds, and also had braces. So it was like, man, if you could like describe what a dweeb looked like when people said that word, that was me. That's pretty much what I looked like.
Well, you overcame it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I grew in a foot. Yeah, and then that was it. But so like when you moved all over the place, was it hard? Was it hard to do that and like pick up and leave and like meet new people and stuff like that all the time?
Yeah, yes and no. I think it was hard because I still don't really feel like I have a home.
Yeah,
you know, I don't
even
have
now.
Yeah, because my parents don't live where I grew up. So I went to high school in DC, and then now they live on a farm in Kansas. So, which was actually my grandparents' farm. So it's sort of our family legacy farm. But, you know, I don't go home and see all my old friends from school. And I don't really, I don't know. It's just, but then at the same time, it sort of forced me to be comfortable in different social circumstances. Sure. And I think other people haven't had that opportunity. So I'm not a person who loves to be on stage, but I'm not shy. Mm-hmm. And I feel very comfortable walking into most rooms and just talking to people and trying to relate to them because I was forced to pretty often.
Over and over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time you moved. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people take for granted, including myself. It's like, you know, obviously I grew up in Milwaukee and I'm from here. So it's like, this is my hometown, whereas like you had like 10 hometowns, you know, as you grew up.
I'm kind of jealous of that though, because I have some friends from here, like a girlfriend I have in Bayview who talks about like the things they did and how much it's changed and the little secrets, you know, about every town, different towns people live in. And I don't have access really to that. So it's kind of,
but it also probably showed you like just how cool other cultures are and stuff,
For
which is
sure.
like a big thing at your restaurant, you know, the international cuisine that you make all the time. That has to be right influenced by kind of traveling so much.
Yeah. Thanks for making that connection. That's
Yeah.
absolutely something that inspires me about food is allowing people to have sort of an experience
Right.
on the plate.
Yeah.
And even if they can't go there, they can, I don't know, have a small
kind
taste
of,
of
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Kind of make that. What has been your favorite place? Like,
Oh yeah. Back to that question.
oh yeah, I forgot
Sorry.
we got on a tangent. But,
I would say it's a cross between, you know, China and Germany. I mean, Berlin, where I lived, was such an amazing experience. You know, I was super broke. I owned 2 pair of pants for like 3 years.
that's the way to do it. Just keep washing them. It's fine.
Yeah. And I just, but there was art on the street, you know, and
Yeah.
people playing music late at night. And I lived in the Turkish district and just walking outside on Saturdays and everybody's grilling, you know, in the parks and little kids are playing Frisbee and people playing guitar and, you know, drinking wine. And it's just a very, I don't know. It was a great city to live in.
Yeah, because you taught English there, right?
I did, yeah. Same in China. That's what brought me around the world as an adult. In China, I worked at a private school.
Okay.
So we lived on campus. So there were 5. They called us foreigners. I'm doing air quotes right now. And there were 1,200 students.
Wow.
No, that's wrong.
Wait,
there were 12,000 students.
But 1,200 is still a lot for 5.
Yeah,
There's
no,
only
there
5
were
teachers?
12,000 students. 800 Chinese teachers. That's what
I was
they
gonna
called
say,
them
it
there.
was just you guys.
And there were 5 foreigners that we foreign teachers. So it was like a small city.
Yeah, that's
with
a lot of people.
Yeah, and they had fencing around it. So it was really.
What grade level is this?
I taught kindergarten and then I taught sort of a middle school equivalent.
Okay.
And it was like their English class and they wanted it to be full immersion. So I would come in and in English say, "Hi, good morning.
Yeah.
What's your name?" You know, and some students were quite advanced and others had very little experience with English, but there was always a Chinese teacher in the room who also had varied degrees of experience with English.
Right.
But one gentleman was really wonderful and he was really kind and he was a great teacher and the kids loved him and he really cared about them learning the language. And so toward the end of my time there, he said, "Melanie, will you please sing us an American song?" And I was super caught off guard. I was like 22, you know, and all these like 14-year-old kids are staring at me.
Just waiting for the song.
I sang Yankee Doodle.
A classic American tune.
Classic, yeah, everybody's fave. Yeah. And then he said, "What does it mean?" So I
That's a
said,
good question. I don't even know.
"This guy rides on a horse and then he puts a feather in his hat, but he calls it macaroni. And macaroni is a type of noodle." And then I realized, like, I don't know
what does
the hell
this even
Yankee
mean?
Doodle is about. Why did I say this?
This is such a bizarre song when you break it down.
Yeah, it was
you know?
not my shining moment.
How's your singing voice? It's
You,
like,
give me a couple beers and then I'll sing a Yankee Doodle for you.
do some karaoke.
Yeah, exactly.
Only Yankee Doodle though.
Yeah.
So going back to your parents, so they live on a farm
Mm-hmm.
now. What are they growing there? What do they have, like animals and stuff?
Yeah. So my parents, my grandparents lived on this farm. They bought it in the 70s and remodeled it. It's a 19th century farmhouse.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was built in 1878. Yeah, it's really neat. It's limestone, which is a really common rock in that area.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kansas has a particular reputation. Sometimes that's warranted, but it's also a really complicated place.
What is the reputation of Kansas?
Well, I think people think of Kansas as very conservative and sort of slow pokey farm town.
Yeah.
And it is that way in some senses, but it also has this really rich settlement history and history of indigenous peoples. And the valley where my parents live was like founded by, I don't know, all these really interesting characters, but they own 80 acres.
Wow.
And they lease out some of the farmland for some farmers. One of the gentlemen who farms the land is 80.
He still farms?
Yeah, he still farms.
Good for you, man.
He's really cool. Yeah, he's a really nice gentleman. And then my parents just have like a garden for themselves, but they grow beets and asparagus and tomatoes and they have an orchard. And
are they into food too? Like, did they influence you to like start, you know, were you into food from an early age? Like, were you into all that?
I was into eating.
Yeah, me too. I still am.
Yeah, I was. I think I always just love to cook. It's
Yeah.
a way to be creative for me. And I think a lot of people, when I first became vegan, when I was, I don't know, maybe 20 or 19, you had to cook because there was nothing to eat.
Right. There's not like the stuff they have in stores now and all this, vegan friendly things, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we would, I was really involved with the music scene in Florida where I was going to college, and we would all get together and just cook big meals, and bands would play and we'd eat afterwards. And
that's cool.
Sometimes it was like spaghetti and tomato sauce because we were broke, but it kind of forced you to, I don't know.
Like to be creative.
Yeah, exactly.
And think outside the box. So when you are making like international dishes, are they, I don't know the right way to put this, but are they like the way they would cook it in that country, or is it like a twist on that dish?
I would say usually they're not authentic, because they're vegan.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
So I think that's part of the fun, actually. So for example, I make a schnitzel, and I've actually never had real schnitzel because I haven't eaten meat. When I first encountered it, I wasn't eating meat.
Yeah.
But we bread it and fry it and make a gravy and make come gnocchi or spätzle or something.
Yeah.
Just sort of like the traditional German way. So
yeah,
it's different and yet the same. And same with some of the Asian. I really like Asian flavors. So some of the Asian dishes we create are sort of twists on it, or maybe make them more accessible or palatable to, the palate here.
Yeah, because I feel like your job is like 10 times harder than any other chef's job, because if another chef was like, I want this to be like chicken, they can just literally get chicken and do it. You had to be like, okay, how can I make it like that? How do you even figure that out, or like get into that way of cooking? Because I never could figure that out, probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question, and some people think fake meats are really weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do they base mostly on?
Yeah. So there's different approaches you can take. Obviously, tofu can be manipulated in a lot of really interesting ways because it takes on so many flavors so easily. I really like working with seitan. Seitan is a wheat gluten-based product.
Okay.
And a lot of people are fearful of gluten, but I think it's a really misunderstood.
Yeah.
So gluten is just the protein portion in flour. So if you were to take white flour and rinse it, make dough, just mix it with water and rinse it under the sink and keep rinsing it, all the starch would rinse away.
Okay.
And you'd have this blob of stretchy material, and that's gluten. So there's nothing like inherently wrong with gluten. Just some people
don't process it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just like some people get indigestion with eating lentils,
or dairy or whatever.
Or dairy. Yeah. Exactly. So it's very high in protein. There's no cholesterol, and you can make it taste like anything.
Yeah.
So you can, make some sausages that are 30 grams of protein, 0 cholesterol, and they have fennel in them and different spices and chili flakes, and it's like eating a brat.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy recreating those experiences for people. It's really fun.
Yeah, because that's got to be cool to like, let's say like someone for like me who's not necessarily a vegan, and I'm eating something there and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. But it's not, it's like, it's supposed to be meat, it's not meat. And I'm like, wow, is it cool to see that kind of reaction? Like people eating your food and being like, how did you do this?
Yeah, it's really fun.
What sort of witchcraft did you do to like make this?
I mean, that's such a simple joy for me. Just to, food brings people together, and food,
that's true too.
For me, food is about creating memories. People coming to have their birthday at Celesta, or people, trying vegan food for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun when people are like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Yeah. I feel really, I don't know, it's really exciting.
That's just like the cherry on top of everything else.
I mean, that's why I do it.
Yeah. So speaking of memories, like what are some of your first like defining memories in like food?
Yeah.
Like, can you remember back? I know I read something about your parents being a big influence on that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I have a really, really close family.
Yeah.
And actually they all live near each other except for me. I'm the only one who lives far away.
Straight away.
Yeah, but we're all super close. And my mom always made dinner homemade every night. We had to sit down. There was no TV, and we ate together.
That's good though.
Yeah, it was great because it forced us to connect even when I was a teenager and I was over it.
Don't want to do this.
I don't want to do this. Exactly. But she is a great baker, and she made all our birthday cakes from scratch and casseroles and all that stuff. And then my dad is super adventurous. He'll eat like, I don't know, crickets dipped in chocolate or ants or
he'll
octopus
just go for it.
tentacles or something. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of a running joke in the family. So he always sort of pushed us to try new things. And my mom always used food as a mechanism to show love. Yeah. So one of my earliest, well, I'll share two perhaps. As a little kid, my grandparents, as I mentioned, lived on that farm. Yeah. So we lived overseas. So we'd come back to the States for like a couple months. Yeah. You know, in the summer, Christmas. Sure. And stay there, obviously. Yeah. So in the garden, my grandma grew new potatoes, which are those tiny little tender baby potatoes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'd go down there and I'd help dig them up. And then she would grow corn and peas, English peas, which a lot of people don't eat anymore, but they're peas that you shell. And then you have peas just like the size of frozen peas, but they're shelled. So they're really tender and they have like a really rich, fresh spring note to them. And she would make this cream sauce and cook these baby potatoes with the peas. Yeah. Just salt and pepper. It's like the simplest dish, but it just reminds me of my grandma, you know? So we'd eat that. And she also had bees. And
I interacted with a beekeeper recently, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did a video with him. No, I did a video for him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I work for Taste of Home, which is a food magazine.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, here in Milwaukee. And I'm a video producer, so I shoot other videos. But one of the things I went out to shoot is this local beekeeper who, sorry, I cut off your story.
No,
but like
I'm interested.
He goes to people's houses and puts beehives in their backyards.
Is that the pod guy?
He's, I don't know.
It's called like Bee Pod or something.
I gotta find him. It's not Bee Pod. It's I'll show you afterwards.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So I went to his house and oh man, beekeepers, you know.
What does that mean?
It's just like I walked up to his house and I don't know, because I was the only one that went. So I first of all felt like I was going to get like murdered because I just go to this guy who says he's a beekeeper. And he's like, yeah, come over. I'll show you my bees.
Come in my basement.
Yeah, he was like that though. He's like, come in my house. Like, this is where I store all this stuff. And he was a really awesome guy, but like he has tons of bees in his backyard. Wow. And it freaked me out because it was like I was trying to film and they were like landing on me, and, you know. But, you know, the crazy thing about bees is that it is really true if you got, he explained all this stuff to me, but if you have like a calm queen, you know, it like affects the whole hive and like all the bees become more calm. So like they were landing on me and walking on me, and then I didn't get stung one time.
Really?
Because he had like a really good queen in that hive or whatever.
That's so cool.
But yeah, he's a beekeeper, and we got to save the bees, you know?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. Vegans have very complicated feelings about honey.
Yeah,
some people eat it and some people don't. But as a kid, we would eat. I remember my grandma would pull, you know, the sheet out from the top of the drawer.
Oh, yeah, and you see all the bees walking around.
And she'd break off a piece of honeycomb and we'd suck the honey. And
it's crazy.
It was pretty
It's crazy
pretty
that
magical.
You get that close to bees, you know? It's kind of scary as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never been afraid of bees. I really love them. I just got a bee tattoo because I like them so
really?
much. Yeah. They just stand for culture and organization and teamwork, and like they're just amazing creatures, you know?
Yeah, and they're just necessary in the in the world. Yeah. What were we talking about? About your
food
family?
memories.
Oh yeah, food memories. There you go.
Yeah. So the second one I'll share. I remember. So I'm 41. So high school was a long time ago for me.
It wasn't that long ago.
It was.
41's not that old.
Okay, keep talking.
Keep saying that.
Keep going. So my dad took us. This is when we lived in DC, to an Indian restaurant, and there weren't Indian restaurants then. Like no one ate sushi in the early 90s. You know, it was sort of a later.
It was very Americanized food all the time. There wasn't a lot of cool cultural food.
Yeah, I mean, even in DC, you know, back then, which is quite diverse. So yeah, I remember going to an Indian restaurant and just encountering all these new smells and flavors. And they gave us this, which I've never seen this at another place since then, but a tray of all these really, to me, exotic pickles, like different pickled vegetables and fruits. And they had pickled lemons.
Wow.
And I remember my dad cutting off a piece and trying it. It was so sour, but it was like such an interesting flavor I'd never had before. And then it kind of makes you think about the possibilities of, you know, what you can eat or create.
Like, what can't you do? You know? Like, and I have, this is like really embarrassing to admit, I've never had Indian food before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to have to go interview.
You have to leave now, actually.
What's happening? You're going to have to go interview the guy who owns the Indian restaurant down the street.
Down this street?
Yeah.
Oh, who is it?
Maharaja's right there.
Oh, yeah. And they recently opened, right?
No, they've been there for years.
Who am I thinking of?
I don't know. How long have you lived here? I don't know.
I'm
going to interview you next time. Sam.
Someone actually suggested that once. No, I'm thinking of a completely different restaurant. I think it was one that was ran by refugees.
Oh,
or something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that one closed.
Did it already?
Refugee. Oh, no, there's a new one in that space, but I don't know anything about it yet.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on it.
Yeah, I got all confused. So what is your favorite kind of food to, first of all, make, like create? Is there a specific like region that you love? Like you love, I love European food or something like that, or Asian dishes or something.
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know if I'd say there's a favorite. I get sort of obsessive about different regions or flavors, and I often don't experiment with those much at the restaurant because I don't think people will like them. Like right now, I'm really interested in Georgian food, like from the country. What is
Georgian food?
Well, they do a lot of lamb, but that's not what I'm so interested in. They just have really compelling flavors to me. Like they have this spinach dip that has all this fennel in it and walnuts. They use walnuts a lot, and they have these huge, gosh, I forgot what the name of it is, but they have these huge dinners that last hours, and they do multiple toasts during the dinner. And when someone does a toast, they sing or tell this story. Often they're folk stories or stories about, ancestors or what have you. And there's kind of this protocol during the meal where you eat this certain thing after the toast, and you're only supposed to eat and drink things at certain moments during these.
Pressure.
Yeah, it's like
Put
a
that
lot
glass
of rules.
down.
Drop that fork. Yeah, and it's just such a rich and fascinating,
that
culture,
is really cool.
Eastern Europe. So I'm really interested in that. And then I love Chinese food, having lived there and learning it's quite different than, what we experience here for the most part.
Yeah.
Like Sichuan peppercorns. Authentic ones have a numbing spice. They're not hot. It's not a heat like a chili.
You just can't feel your mouth?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, come by the restaurant and I'll give you some.
Just give me a bunch. I like drooling.
Here, eat a whole spoonful.
Yeah, they're really good. Trust me.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting flavor and experience. So I love cooking with those. But I don't often at the restaurant because people don't want to eat that stuff.
If I didn't know what was going to happen to me, but I think that's just my own fears and anxieties. Like if I was eating something and all of a sudden my mouth went out, or I couldn't feel part of it, I'd probably be scared.
Call the health department.
oh no, what's happening? But no, I didn't know that. There's so many cool things that you can create with food. It's like, is it overwhelming sometimes that it's like it literally is endless, that you could pretty much do anything?
I think it's just exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never get bored. So
yeah. Yeah. So talking about the restaurant, what led up? I know you had a business before. Do you still do that? The pop-ups and stuff like that? No,
it morphed into the restaurant.
So what led up to wanting to get like a brick and mortar, like concrete location? Was it scary to start your own business?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, so I have been a teacher my whole life. Yeah. I taught for 13 years in Florida and abroad, and then here briefly. Yeah. And then I just was sort of itching for something different. And I've always loved food. I've always loved to cook, and I feel like I've always shown people I care about them through cooking. Yeah. And I was sort of encouraged to, experience that. So I just thought I'd do a pop-up one night and just sort of see how it went. How it went, yeah. Yeah, so I approached Draft and Vessel, which is a really cool beer bar in Shorewood. Yeah. And I said, hey, how about this? I'll cook some food. You keep the money separate. I'll keep the money separate. You don't have to mess with any of that. Mm-hmm. If no one comes, no harm, no foul. Right. If 5 people come, maybe you get 5 new customers. Yeah. Let's just see how it goes. So I made a couple posters, and I made 3 savory dishes and something sweet. I don't even remember what they were. And then I hired a young woman who worked at the coffee shop down the street to be my server.
Oh, nice.
So I set up these camp stoves in their basement next to their beer cooler and all my food. And Alyssa and I were sitting upstairs drinking a beer, hanging out. And then a couple people came in. And I said, oh, I guess I'll go downstairs and get ready. And then all of a sudden she runs down the stairs with like 8 tickets. And I said, oh, this is not what okay, yeah. So it took an hour and we sold out of all the food. Wow. Yeah, it was great. So I thought, well, maybe I'm onto something. So I started doing pop-ups around the city for about a year and a half. Okay. And they just kept getting bigger and bigger, and I kept selling out of food. And it was really fun because a lot of the guys who own these breweries, they haven't or not everyone, but most of them haven't had much experience with vegan food. They're
I
like,
can tell you almost pretty much all of them. Right?
they're like beer dudes, you know?
Yeah.
So here I am. I come in and I'm like, hey guys, can I do this vegan pop-up? And they're like, I guess it's a Tuesday night. Like, what am I going to lose? And then we'd come in and 200 people would show up. And all of a sudden they'd come over and say, hey, can I get you a beer? Can I help you with anything? I'm like, yeah, you can get me a beer.
Keep going.
Yeah. So it ended up being great. And I met a lot of really amazing people. And I learned a lot. Like, a lot of those guys were really kind to me and gave me, when I was thinking about opening the restaurant, they gave me advice and direction or connections.
Yeah.
So it kind of was great because A, I built a customer base before the restaurant opened, and B, I connected myself to some people in the industry to which I had no relationship prior, before the restaurant opened. So it was great.
Yeah. Cause I feel like going into that, it's just intense, like opening your own business and stuff. But if you have a little bit of traction even beforehand. So why did you decide to go to the concrete store? Like,
I think I felt like if I don't do this, I'll regret it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a very clever reason to open a business, but
no, it's a good reason.
It's very personal, I guess, and sincere. So I just felt like if I don't try this, I'm going to regret it. And the worst thing that's going to happen is I'll fail, and hopefully I'll learn something either way. Yeah.
Was your family supportive of it? And like people, were they nervous at all?
Yeah. I mean, they were all very supportive.
Yeah. That's good.
That's my family's MO. They're really supportive about everything,
nice.
Even all the crazy stuff I've done. 'Cause I was always the bad kid, but
really, you're the bad kid?
Hell yeah, I was the bad kid.
Bad in what way? Like
rebellious, I guess. Not, hopefully not mean, but rebellious. Yeah.
Because I was sitting with you right now. I would never guess that you were the bad kid.
Well, the teacher side's coming out right now.
Okay. Yeah, because you seem very nice.
Thanks. Well, rebels aren't unnice.
I guess. Well, they kind of are because. Well, it depends like what kind of rebel you are, I guess.
Fair.
Because sometimes rebels are just like, I'm going to do whatever I want. And then you just disregard everyone else's feelings and just, and then they just go.
I'm sure 17-year-old Melanie was a little bit like that.
Oh, I'm sure.
So was 17-year-old Sam.
And I wouldn't even define him as a rebel. He was just a terrible puberty-ridden boy that hated everything.
It was brutal.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Thinking back on those years, sometimes I think about, the decisions I'd made and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What was I doing?
Yeah. Well, our brains aren't fully formed. So I guess that's fair.
What I'm blaming on.
Yeah.
I was kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until now. So I guess going back to the restaurant, is that kind of a big thing for you now, is like building that sense of community and having people come in and do you have like regulars and stuff? Is that like a cool thing?
It's so fun. Yeah. I mean, we have regulars, and I know if they have kids and what they've been doing and what their jobs are. And some of them have become friends, and it's really great. Yeah. Like some days aren't, a Wednesday unless so-and-so comes in and gets his, seitan drummies and his cauliflower.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we totally have regulars, and it's really fun because for me, I really enjoy people coming in who maybe have a preconceived notion about what the experience will be like. Which is a lot of people. Yeah. And then they try it, and then they're hopefully pleasantly surprised. And we've gotten a lot of that, which is really great. Yeah. Because I mean, even just looking at the food that you put out and take photos of, it looks really great. Thanks. And I'm sure that's part of it, is like the presentation and all that stuff, not just the taste, right? Yeah. And something we really try to distinguish ourselves with is really satisfying, satiating food, hearty portions. It's not a twig on a plate with like a little sprout on top, which sometimes I like food like that personally, but that's just not what I do. I'm like really heavy handed with spices and seasonings and sauces. Well, I also think it fits the climate here. People want to eat a lot all the time. Yeah. And I try to show, that I care about people by preparing food like that. Right. Because sometimes those restaurants are, I feel like it makes it even more intimidating, right? You go to this really fancy place, and then you order this like $30 dish, and it is like a twig on a plate. I'm still hungry. How am I supposed to eat this? Like, what is this? And then you go eat after dinner. You go stop for food afterwards. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that was a conscious choice then, not to do that? Yeah, for sure. It was. And I really like places that create dishes that, I guess the word is refined. I hope my flavors are refined, but I'm really interested in people leaving and feeling really satisfied, kind of like, I don't know, I'm like your vegan grandma, cooking up some like vegan grandma food.
Yeah. How do you develop the recipes of like what you're doing there? And also you switch out stuff a lot. So is it just kind of what you're vibing or like?
Yeah, we also are really collaborative. So often I'll invite, people who work at the restaurant, staff members, to weigh in on their thoughts and what they'd like to see. Do they have any ideas? And sometimes they have really awesome ideas. And sometimes they develop some of the dishes.
Yeah.
And we've been really working on developing our cake services. So we do wedding cakes now and birthday cakes, and they're completely vegan. And that often surprises people too. That's really fun. I had a gentleman order a cake for his mother who's quite ill. He lives in another city and is here taking care of her. And he lives in a city that has a lot of vegan options. He emailed us and said, "Oh my gosh, this cake was so amazing. Everybody loved it so much."
Yeah.
They didn't, he didn't tell them, I guess, that it was vegan. They didn't have any idea until I told them. And it was really special to my mom. And he said, "This is like one of the best desserts I've had. And I live in this city," I'm not going to say where it is, but this state.
I get what you mean.
That, is quite common. So I thought that was a really wonderful compliment.
Yeah. That's got to feel really good. Do you ever just cry?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
I would.
To be a part of, to have him choose us
to have that impact on someone's life.
Yeah. And it's so small, but he's going to remember that birthday with his mom, and maybe he won't remember my name and that I made the cake, but I got to be a part of that on some level.
Yeah, because it's just like, moments are moments that, they're not defined by how big or small they are if it impacts you, I think.
I agree.
But what has been like a really great moment for you as far as like interacting with a customer or like having someone come back or being like, wow, this, I don't know. To me, it's like having somewhere to go even is a really cool thing. Like on a Wednesday, you're going to the restaurant to, talk to you and like have it something like even that is a nice thing to do. But has there been any customers that have been like that? Yeah,
for sure. We have a lot. It's really neat when we have a woman who comes in with her daughter and they're really cute and they sit at the bar and the little girl's really excited. And I don't know if the little girl is vegetarian or vegan or something, or maybe she's just sort of curious about it. But I guess they went to another restaurant in Colorado.
Yeah.
And the mom was telling me, the daughter said in front of the restaurant owner, "This isn't as good as Celesta." And the mom was like,
"How dare you?"
Yeah, it's really rude. Yeah. And I'm not interested in sour grapes or anything like that. I just thought it was sweet that they felt at home in our space. And that's really important to me.
That's unfiltered too, coming from a kid.
Yeah, that's true.
That's their real opinion.
Yeah. And just, families coming in. We have people who come. We have a couple that order out 4 times a week and come and pick up. So just like you said, sort of being that go-to and creating community, or people sitting at the bar and talking to each other and making friends.
What a foreign idea.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Or people coming in and reading a book and not on their cell phones and ordering a cocktail and just enjoying an hour by themselves. It's really nice to see.
I was observing. Where was that today? I was somewhere, it doesn't matter, but I was like looking at people, and every time I looked around, everybody was on their phone, literally.
Oh, really?
And there was couples, there was people by themselves, and it was like a weird like novel that someone wrote, that I was in. And
it's existential for sure.
Oh my gosh, what is happening?
Yeah.
And I was like starting to look, and it has become like a really big thing.
Yeah.
A really big problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because we find community online too.
Right.
And which one are you prioritizing? The person in front of you or the one you can connect to on your phone? Yeah.
I was actually, you posted about this the other day, I think, about this like this moment that you remember. Do you know what I'm talking about? As a kid when someone said you can't do anything?
Yeah.
Or everything, maybe like that. What is the story behind
that? That was actually when I was a teacher.
Oh, you were a teacher.
Yeah. Okay. And I was in the break room with a friend of mine. We were talking and I had all these ideas about all these things I wanted to do, including attending grad school. And
where was this, by the way?
That was in Florida.
Okay.
I taught at a art school. Okay. An arts magnet school in Florida for 11 years. And she looked at me and said, "You can't do everything." And that was the opposite of what I've always been told. I've always been told, which is great. My parents have been super...
Built you up.
Yeah, like, hey, you can do everything and anything you want to be, you can be it. And I often told my students that. And then I realized that's not fair or useful or true.
It might be actually counterintuitive and damaging because like I felt that way too. And I work myself way too hard on way too many things, you know, rather than focusing on one thing that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And that's not detrimental. That's actually a good thing if you can focus on something, because hopefully then you can achieve it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard for me because I'm sure people look at what I'm doing or look at me on the surface and assume or say, oh, you're living your dream. And that's true. That is absolutely true. And I feel really lucky and honored that I've had this opportunity. But also I was a writer. I worked with refugees for 8 years, volunteering with people coming in, you know, from the country fleeing political and religious oppression. I worked with students in adult literacy programs who couldn't read, and I would tutor them and, you know, help them improve their reading skills. So I have a lot of different passions, and I had to give a lot of that up, you know, to build the restaurant. And sometimes it's really hard. I miss reading books. You know, I miss interacting with people from different cultures as much as I used to. But I had to make that decision, and I'm glad I did.
Because you wouldn't have been in the place you are now.
That's
right. With the restaurant, it's impossible to put yourself in something, you know, as much as you can, and also try to do 5 other things.
That's right.
It's also just exhausting, and you shouldn't do it.
Just doing the restaurant is exhausting.
I bet.
That's okay.
How many people are there? Is it you and
about 12 other employees?
12 other employees. Is that your first experience managing people, or like being the boss, I guess? The big boss?
I don't feel like a big boss, but yeah, I mean, it's akin to teaching on some level, but I would say at Celesta, we're very collaborative and we talk through things a lot. It's mostly women. There are 2 men that work there, 3 men now that work there, but we work really hard to create a space where people have a voice and they matter. And you know, I hope the job isn't just clock in, clock out, but people
they actually
have
care.
fun and they care, and it's a safe environment where they feel really supported.
Is there a big vegan community here in Milwaukee? Like, are there other restaurants that? I know there are. Like, there's like Strange Town is the only other one I think I know.
And Urban Beats.
And is Beerline Cafe? Is that?
Beerline's mostly vegan. Okay. Yeah, they have a lot of vegetarian options too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's and on the bus.
Oh yeah.
They're all great. Yeah, it's growing like crazy, and a lot of the international restaurants have lots of options too.
Yeah. Where are some of your favorite places to go? Like, what do you?
Actually, I don't eat at vegan restaurants very often. I love international food. So I like going Ethiopian, Chinese food, Thai food.
Isn't there an Ethiopian restaurant right down the street?
Don't tell me you haven't tried that one either.
I haven't.
It's good. And it's communal. You know, you eat with your hands and you share. So it's really fun. Yeah.
Is there certain countries that don't really have like a food culture? I was in Ireland for like 6 months. I went to school there. And it wasn't really like anything, you know, I wasn't like overly impressed with anything. It was kind of just, What
about the full Irish breakfast? Don't they have a pretty impressive breakfast?
I did eat that, and I ate, what is it, blood pudding, without knowing that.
What is it? It's blood.
Yeah, it's congealed blood. It comes in like a disc though. So I thought it was like a patty or something of like a sausage, and I ate it. And after I ate it, I'm like, wow, this is intense.
What did it taste like?
It tasted like, just a lot of seasonings, essentially. It tasted like something you shouldn't be eating. Like I got into a place as a kid that I shouldn't have gone.
Okay, question. Yeah. What kind of blood?
I think pork. Or not pork, pig's blood, I think.
That's
pork
so
blood.
Gross.
I know, it is. And I ate it afterwards, like, ooh.
Yeah.
Don't want to eat that.
Yeah, so the Irish breakfast, it's what? Toast, beans,
eggs, blood pudding, and eggs, I think.
Wow. That'll start your day.
Yeah, that'll really get you going.
Get you out the door.
It'll get your stomach going.
Whew,
but are there places like that in your opinion?
I mean, I don't think so. I feel like
there's something everywhere.
I do. You know, maybe it's not my first choice, like the blood pudding perhaps, but I'm sure.
It's not mine either. I got tricked.
Yeah, you did. I'm sure that means a lot to somebody else. But yeah, I think, you know, like in Florida, the people did low country boils, and, you know, there was a lot of Caribbean influence and Latin American influence, of course, African American influence, and just really rich flavors, tropical fruit, you know, it's so regional, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know about Kringles before I moved here.
Oh, really?
I didn't know brats were such a big thing until I lived here.
Yeah.
There's a food culture here too.
Yeah, which you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up eating Kringle. I'm Danish, so it's like,
Oh, okay.
It's,
Yeah.
It's part of. It was always there.
Part of who you are.
Yeah.
The Kringle.
The Kringleman. But in Wisconsin, there is a lot of European folks, a lot of Germans, a lot of Danish, a lot of
Norwegian.
yeah,
And,
it's a big thing too.
Polish. I think it's really neat. I mean, there's areas of the city that look almost like Europe, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. All the cool little row houses and
Yeah.
the brick, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So are you like settled down here? Are you thinking that you would go somewhere else?
I'm settled down here for a while.
Yeah. For the time being.
Yeah, I don't know. I think so, but I've said that before. But yeah, I mean, for sure for a long time, because obviously the restaurant is here. That was one of the hardest things, is giving up traveling to open it.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be able to get back to it in a year or two, but
Where are some places you want to go?
oh gosh, I want to go back to Berlin, of course.
I still haven't been to Germany.
Oh man,
It's a bummer.
next year.
I know. I really wanted to go.
Yeah, I want to go back to Berlin, which feels like a type of home to me.
Yeah.
I've never been to Greece. I'd love to go to Greece.
Yeah.
I'd love to go to Egypt. I think Egypt would be amazing.
Yeah.
I have dear friends who are Iranian. I'd love to go to Iran or Lebanon, Jordan, anywhere in that area would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, all those places, I think it's the time thing, you know, it's just getting there.
Yeah.
That's or finding time to go. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I would really like to go. There's not a place that you could say that I wouldn't be interested in seeing, you know what I mean? Or experiencing. But, so what are the hours of Celesta? How can people figure that out?
Sure.
Yeah.
We're open 11 to 10, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday 10 to 2 for brunch.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Is there a big brunch crowd?
Yeah.
I love brunch.
Brunch is really fun, and we do vegan Bloody Marys.
Ooh.
Yeah, you can get a chicken skewer too.
Oh, next weekend. That's where I'm gonna
come
be.
try it. They're
That's
really
gonna
fun.
be. So do you have a website and like social media and stuff?
Yeah, I'm really active on social media. Speaking of communities,
Yeah.
that's how I've met a lot of people, which has been great. So I have a really active Instagram and Facebook page, and then we have a website, which is celesta.restaurant.
Yeah. I mean, every time I drive past it, I was like, I really need to go in there. It just looks cool. It's a cool
Thanks.
building. And like the signage and all that stuff.
So my dad and I built the sign and the
Oh,
bar.
really? Mm-hmm. And the bar.
Yeah, he brought wood from a walnut tree on his farm, and we built it together.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long did it take?
He had the wood already planed
Okay.
when he drove it from Kansas, but it took us about 2 weeks, and we built the bar, the bench, and some other smaller elements in the restaurant. So
Did you intentionally set it up so it is more like people have to talk to each other?
it's just a really small space, so
Yeah.
it's sort of confined itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I kind of like it because it feels very intimate,
It does. Yeah.
and people remark on that all the time. It feels really intimate and cozy, yet, you know, sort of sophisticated, hopefully a bit at the same time.
Right, because I mean, even driving past, I haven't gone in yet, which I will. But driving past, you look in, because you have big windows too, and you look and you're like, that's a place I think I would like to go inside.
Yeah.
It just seems like exactly what you said, very cozy and very like community driven. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
But you know what
I
mean?
hope people feel comfortable
Right,
in this
that's what-
space.
that's
That's
what
really
they-
important.
Yeah.
And like they're still having an experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, be sure to go check out the food. I mean, it's always changing. So
is.
even if you go 1 week, the next week you could get something completely different.
Yeah.
From a different area of the world, inspired.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
and
Sam. It was really fun.
Yeah. Thank you.